Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Russell Shirey, and welcome to the sixth session today. And today we have the privilege of listening to Captain Bill Shepard. It's my pleasure to introduce Captain Bill Shepard from Stevens Institute of Technology, and he will be presenting updates on his research task labeled WRT-1007, titled Capstone Marketplace. With that, I turn it over to you, Captain Shepard.
Good afternoon. Welcome to a quick look at what happened in the last academic year for the Capstone Marketplace. And I'm going to touch on what we're doing this academic year as we start the fall semester. My co-investigator on the Capstone Marketplace is Mr. Michael DeLorme. If I can get this thing to work. So many schools do capstone projects for their graduating seniors. And I often get asked, why are CERC's capstones any different than what you could find at a typical university? And I guess capstones probably started in the engineering departments as senior design projects, and that's still what we do. But we like to differentiate the CERC capstones a couple of different ways. The many campuses that I've been on, it's typical that professors nominate topics and approve the organization of teams. CERC, we like to have students pick out topics that they're interested in, and these are on our website. That's why we call it a marketplace, and these come from military operators. These are real people who have real problems, and the fact that this effort is directed towards solving solutions that will be used seems to be very attractive for both the faculty and students. We both do 2-semester design projects, but in the CERC environment, we have emphasis on introducing common business tools to the design teams. We have 4 scheduled reviews during the 2 semesters, and these reviews include both the technical performance and details on the schedule and the cost that the student team is accumulating, much as a standard small business R&D operation would experience. We don't have industry participation as yet in CERC capstones, although the door to do that is open, and we encourage university teams to form partnerships with various companies and industries that'll help their student team grow their solution and possibly transition it. But it remains a future goal for the CERC Capstone Marketplace. Some capstones on universities are paper studies. We try to make the CERC capstones be tangible deliverables. They can be software or hardware or both, but we want the student team to spend the 2 semesters building something. By the numbers, this will be the 8th year CERC has run the Capstone Marketplace. Last year, we had 24 different projects, approximately 125 engineers. We had, of the 11 universities that participated, we had 5 schools that were not members of CERC's consortium. And this fall, we have 27 project teams underway, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. CERC capstones mesh with CERC's overall research plan, and I'll go through how that happens here on this slide. CERC's main thrusts are enterprises and trusted systems and how to do systems management transformation. But at the bottom, you see human capital development. We're a large part of that. The thrust of the CERC Capstone Marketplace is to introduce a smidgen of system engineering, and especially system engineering thinking, to general engineering students. I'm not with the hope that they're all going to become system engineers, but when they graduate, they'll have an appreciation for the role system engineering plays in developing and making new products. And hopefully we'll get an increased interest in possibly some of those engineers joining the DoD workforce. The capstones really extend the existing network that CERC has. Besides the 22 schools in the CERC consortium, we worked with the following outside universities who are not members of the consortium. And we've got DOD's approval to do that specifically for these capstone projects. And we have kind of their stamp to work with any accredited U.S. university. And this is particularly attractive to some of the smaller technical schools. What are we trying to do with capstones? We are aiming at many organizations in the military where people, particularly at low levels, have good ideas, but for some reason they fall below the radar of formal research and development programs. And we feel that this stimulates innovation in these outfits, especially in the most junior people. We connect these initiatives with students in schools, and these teams get to work on real problems. And we introduce a little bit of system engineering thinking to how the students proceed. And in the last bullet, we emphasize the aspects of a business environment that any research and development organization has to follow to be functional. And it's more than just having the technical knowledge about what to do. It's how you perform against schedule and cost. And we pace our design reviews with these interests in mind. Real quick, this is a little video of a wing from a unmanned aerial vehicle called a Scan Eagle. And the Navy wanted to develop a system where the vehicle could fly in icing conditions. And this is a little heat strip on the leading edge of the wing. And it's melting down some ice accretion on there. And this will allow the Scan Eagle to fly into icing conditions. That's not desirable, but sometimes it happens. And rather than losing the vehicle with a very simple modification, this project proved that adding de-icing to a UAV was entirely feasible. For the last 2 years, the University of Texas at Austin has taken on a challenge to create a device that will establish an airway in a wounded soldier. And this is something that happens in combat conditions where there isn't a really qualified medical professional immediately at hand. And even to position the subject and get the airway in can be hazardous to both the subject and the person trying to do it. So the idea is to develop an automatic self-intubating snake, some type of gizmo that can go down the windpipe and miss the esophagus and establish an airway for a wounded soldier. That's been worked for 2 years. Originally, they were looking at tracking models, and you see on the left, there's a diagram of CO2 sensing, and there's an algorithm that maps this into quadrature and tries to drive these motors that you see on this tube on the right in various directions to move the snake around. We're extending this project for another year this year, and the students are still wrestling with basically the algorithm. Right now, this device is about a TRL level 3 or 4. We're hoping to get it to technology readiness level 6 by the end of this year. We have had a couple of other capstone efforts transition to programs of record. The Navy wanted to have a life jacket where people wearing it, if they fell in the water and they were unconscious, the life jacket would inflate. But if they're on a boat and they're getting sprayed or doused with water and they're wet, the jacket won't fire because there's some sort of device or mechanism on the jacket that senses it's not being immersed. It's just being wetted. And so Capstone team came up with a computer algorithm and some pressure sensors. And this device is being adopted right now by US SOCOM and also the Department of Homeland Security for the Coast Guard. The Navy had a need that was extant for more than a decade to try and figure out how to stop sailboats and other small ships and craft that have particular types of propulsion that are very difficult to stop. Sailboats is a good example. And a prototype was developed. Two teams worked this 2 years ago, and one team from Stevens developed a snare. It was tested, by the Navy, and it was tested under operational conditions, and it was successful 5 out of 5 times. This capability is now in operational use by the Navy in various theaters, and it was developed by students. This was an effort that was attempted at a government laboratory for many years without much success, and one student team succeeded in creating a successful design in 2 semesters for a total of about $10,000. Quickly looking at this fall's capstones, I'll go quickly over the list of topics here. We're looking at analyzing signals, acoustic noise with smartphones for the Navy. We're doing work on augmented reality, using that for training. The Navy has a dry combat submersible. We call it the DCS. We've got 10 teams working 7 different topics on that for that particular customer, having to do with keeping the atmosphere under control, providing life support to divers outside, managing the duty cycle of the crews operating the vehicles, storage, harvesting power from the water currents going by, and also managing the ballast in the submarine in different salinity conditions between fresh and salt water. Got a lot of work with the Army underway. We're looking at emojis as they are used in various social media, especially in foreign languages. We're doing work on a very low-cost means to sense unauthorized underground activity, digging, tunneling, stuff that's going on basically around a perimeter that may impact the security of the perimeter. The last topic on this page, Hegemony Online. This is a strategic defense war game that was written by Rand Corporation, but it's a board game, and a group of students are working on moving that to a networked, computer-based, online game that can be played with multiple players. Lots of interest in that. Second page, the Army's interested in monitoring what their free fall students do as they jump out of airplanes and fly through the sky. We call it free fall. And the flight data recorder will give the instructors some idea if the student is doing what the protocols are for the correct handling of their body position and their parachutes. Object obscuration, this has to do with understanding the capabilities of image recognition with video cameras. Patient ID, this is tracking folks who are really unknown patients through a medical care system. We're measuring blank ammunition in various types of foreign weapons. We don't have any real way to gather that data. Some students at Michigan Tech are building a device to do that. We've talked the self-intubating airway device. We're continuing that again. The 3 topics on terrain positioning. This is for ground and air vehicles being able to navigate a specific area of the world without having reference to global positioning systems. So it's a denied GPS capability. That's kind of a hot topic today in the defense establishment. The last 2, traumatic brain injury. This is an ongoing project to look at the eye's response to light stimulus. This seems to correlate well to patients who have had exposure to traumatic incidents, explosions, things like that. Wearable technologies, we're looking at a whole host of devices for recreation, sports, training, other things that could be adopted by soldiers to be used during their training and possibly their operations for better feedback on how they can improve their performance. Total of 27 teams. Now we plan on starting a couple more one semester capstone projects after the holidays. It's not totally typical, but we have done a couple of capstones where we start them in January and we run them for one semester. Depends on how full our boat is for the topics that we've got nominated and what our funding level is. But right now, we're going to do a couple more this spring. The timeline for capstones has not changed over the past 2 years. Part of what we have to do in managing this is we have to map a government fiscal year on top of an academic calendar, and the two don't exactly match up. Just the highlights in the fall, October 1st, we start the new government fiscal year. And then the fall semester actually starts in most cases around Labor Day for many universities and runs to the holidays. And then the spring semester will end somewhere middle to the end of May. Now we've got 4 capstone milestones that are typical with each of the projects. And then we look toward trying to identify late spring, early summer, what our government funding levels are going to be so that we can make allocations in the September timeframe for projects. We collect, as the spring semester ends, we collect research topics. We put them up on the site in somewhere in May, and then over the summer as faculty and students look at them, by early September, we start having teams sign up to do the particular topics. And we're doing the sponsor research review now. We're hoping to have, conditions permitting, some type of summit in the mid-spring, probably middle of May next year, that'll summarize the activities of all the teams. And that's our timeline. The benefits, this is principally from a government point of view. We think that the Capstone Marketplace comes up with innovative solutions, and they're often out of the box. Some are surprisingly good. We think that they're value added with very modern investments in comparison to what would be the funds needed for government or industry studies. Our project ceiling is typically $5,000. We have spent more, we typically spend a little bit less. And it provides our government customers additional technical background for things that they want to get more in depth in for their research and development activities. It does create an interest in these organizations for advanced technical education, both for the government organization and for the students doing the work. I often talk to the teams and say, hey, you can do more of this if you want to follow on. All you got to do is get into grad school. And I think there are a lot of students that probably take more of an interest in that by their exposure to practical use of their engineering knowledge. And it also creates interest in the defense force in future employment. Some of the quotes that we've seen over the past 3 years, the student team ensures that the project is approached with a clean slate. That's what the Latin says. And the last one is one of my favorites. This refers to the sailboat stopping project. The student team outperformed a laboratory that worked on this for 10 years. And you can't match results like that. So questions on how to learn more about the marketplace. Our website is listed here, www.capstonemarketplace.org. And if you choose, you can email us directly, myself or Mr. Mike DeLorme. And we're at stevens.edu there. Okay, I'm ready for questions if we have any. Russ, I don't know if you want to pulse the crowd. I'm looking for questions, and I have not
Yeah, if
seen
anybody wants
anyone.
any questions, uh, excellent talk. I had no idea this program existed, so it definitely seems like a good bang for your buck, as you said. If
Well,
anybody has any questions, feel free.
I think we might be the smallest project inside the CERC, and we're proud of it. I'm just making a joke, but I think our level of resourcing is fairly low for what we're able to do with it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I've seen a lot of expensive projects that don't have as good of results. Some of the items you showed look pretty useful.
Well, while we're waiting
Especially,
for anybody to pop up with a question, one of the things that I really like the most about it is I find that in the defense establishment in particular is great frustration with the speed of acquisition. And I don't think you could put your finger on any particular reason why the gears turn so slowly, but it's just the process that we have. And one of the things that I like the most about the Capstone Marketplace is it allows us to jump ahead and take a quick look at what some of the answers might be at very low cost, whether an initiative is worth pursuing or not. And often it turns out that a particular idea has some real merit to it, and maybe the R&D organization that normally would take that and run with it had ignored it, but now they reconsider it because of the added knowledge the students bring to the table. I really think that's a great strength of what we're doing.
yeah, definitely. I had a question actually. As you're briefing, I don't think you covered this, but is there capabilities for classified work, or if the new innovation
Yeah.
Is deemed to go that level, do the capstones cover those kind of efforts as well?
Yes, we do. Just a quick answer to your question. We can do classified studies. It's a little bit restricted in terms of how we can make it work. But first of all, you've got to have a school that has ability to deal with classified material. And so right now we have the service academies and the Naval Postgraduate School able to do so. A couple of other schools, I'm just trying to think of any ones in particular, say that they have arrangements. If we have a classified topic, they could take it on. It's not super common, but some of the bigger schools have that. Particularly ones where they have some schools have various military grad school programs. I know Purdue and I think Purdue for sure, University of Texas, a couple other schools like that have ways that they can do classified work. That said, there are probably quite a number of things that are going on in the 27 projects you see now that the intimate details of which could be classified if we fully exposed who wants the project done and what they're going to do with it if it's all very successful. But we've told the government sponsors, look, don't couch it that way. As long as we obscure exactly what you're going to do with this, we can keep it unclassified. And they seem to be pretty happy with that. And I think that has been a factor in getting good participation from the military. The minute we start having lots of classified projects, I mean, you just can't run a classified project for $5,000. It's just, I think it's by definition impossible. So we try and go with unclassified, at least the academic thrust, unclassified whenever possible. Further to that, there's a question and answer session or a frequently asked questions section on the Capstone Marketplace website. And this question and many others like it are posed and answered for participants. So anybody that wants to know more about how this really runs, if you go on the website and you find the frequently asked questions section, you'll find a lot of information there about things like this.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Robert Lewis also said UAH has classified capability as well. So yeah, there's probably a few. I'll go ahead and post the Capstone Marketplace URL as well in the comments here.
Okay.
Guess if nobody has other questions, I'll ask another. I mean, it is a lot of bang for the buck at $5,000. Is it typically a competitive process? Like, are there more, I guess, sponsoring agencies than students typically, or?
Yeah, that gets into how do we identify the right university for the topic. So far, we have not had huge competition for any of the particular research topics that we've posted. I think the most we've seen is one topic that 3 different schools wanted to pursue. And again, how we select our awardees, it's all documented on the website, but several considerations come into mind. One is the quality of, they write a short proposal, and we show these to our government sponsor with our recommendations, and the recommendations are based on what we think is the quality of the proposal, the willingness of the university to collaborate. Our $5,000 only goes so far. We don't usually pay for direct labor charges like teaching assistants, etc., salaries. We expect the university to provide the faculty support, the laboratories, the shop time, and anything like that, maybe software that would normally be used by engineering students as their contribution to the capstone effort. So that's all detailed in the proposal. We make our, and the government customer may also have an association with a particular university. Some of the universities in the North Carolina area, the Research Triangle, UNC, North Carolina State, have a lot of activity with the Army. And so the Army may say, well, we want to continue to work with UNC, and that's a factor in which school would get a particular topic. So at the moment, it's both a good and a bad thing. We have not had a lot of, if you will, contention about which university gets which award. That's a future problem. I think it's a good problem to have, but right now we're not somehow the number of topics and the money we have and the number of schools that are interested in sponsoring teams, it's been okay.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That sounds exciting. So there's about 10 minutes left. If anybody thinks of any questions they want to ask, like I said, I mean, this is a pretty exciting venue that I had no idea existed. So I'm going to pass this information back to my colleagues at the Air Force Research Laboratory, where I was a few years ago, because they could probably find it handy.
Yeah, this is another consideration that we have really quickly. We would right now, because I had some experience in the special operations world, I know a lot of people who are still have something to do with that. I call my buddies up and say, hey, can I come visit? Let's talk about projects that you might get engaged in where you have students help you. And that's how this has really been promoted. But it really needs larger interest from the traditional services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. And so we have had very, I would say, thin contact with the Air Force Research Lab, Naval Research Lab, Army Research Lab. These are the places where we could really get some pretty strong sponsorship. So far, we haven't been able to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Because I assume the color of money that you accept as well would be in the total R&D range as well, which
Yeah, this is another thing. Well, you back to if you were a military guy, most military operational organizations do not have an R&D responsibility. They don't do acquisition, they don't do program management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you go there and say, well, they're asking us, they're saying, well, why should we do any of this capstone stuff? I say, well, a couple reasons. One is you guys are at the tip of the spear, and you're really the people who have the need here. And if you're not getting everything you think you might want to have through the acquisition system, where you got to wait 4 or 5 years for it, this is a way to get a quick look right now on what that would look like, what it could do for you. I mean, wouldn't you want that? And oh, by the way, the funding is coming from other people. And even if you had the money, would it be the right color of money? It needs to be research money. Not everybody's got that. And even if you had the research money, you need a contract vehicle to be able to move that money from your military organization to that university. And just getting a contract solicited and awarded like that could take a year, and we've got that. So CERC is really the back office for these government organizations that otherwise couldn't do it because the mechanics of getting it started are just too cumbersome. And that's really what I present as the selling point, saying, hey, you guys have the idea, you're willing to wade in and do a little mentoring with these student teams, but you don't have the finances or the back office to help you run it, and we provide that. And that usually sells it right there.
yeah, you hit all the all the key points that usually slow things down. The main one, contracting,
I got a question
right there.
here from Robert Lewis. Robert Lewis. No contact so far with the Maneuver Center of Excellence at Fort Benning. I will say we are
Kevin Shepard, I think we lost you for. Looks like your screen froze. Looks like we lost Captain Shepard.